all of these magnificent little rendezvous, enlightenments. Even during lunch yesterday, there was like a lot of aha moments with a lot of joyous, fun-loving people that just contribute so much to my life and my well-being. My question that I
Those
have...
manifestations feel good, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
They aren't necessary for your feeling good, but they are evidence of your feeling good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a powerful statement to focus on for just a moment. So often, you want an experience in order to promote feeling good, when what we want is for you to understand that those good feeling experiences are evidence that you already do feel good. You feel the difference? I need to do this so that I can feel good, or I do feel good, and then this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. It's really an important thing to get clear in your mind. Yeah.
Yes. And that brings me to the now. You know, that was yesterday's, and sometimes I like looking back at, for me, the evidence builds the confidence of allowing myself to go to new manifestations without this struggle.
Well, looking back isn't the best idea you've ever had, but go on.
I don't go too far back. Like yesterday, which is as far as I wanted to go on that aspect. And there were so many wonderful manifestations during yesterday. It's just like, and I wasn't even aware of.
It's a good thing when you're in joyful moments to acknowledge that you are and focus upon them and practice the vibration of them, practice the feeling of them. It's what we call milking it for more. It's like accomplishing a more substantial vibration of it. And there certainly isn't anything wrong with revisiting that to reinforce that substantial vibration of well-being. In other words, if that's what you're talking about, anything that causes you to reinforce your awareness of wonderful things is always to your advantage.
And very much so. And that's where I'm trying to shore up and well up all of this abundance that's within me, to the point that it's easier for me to be receptive to it, because I'm really ready for so many different things to happen in my life.
Listen to your own conversation a little bit and feel in it the element of trying a little bit. You're really not separating the question from the answer that much. You're sort of doing what you were doing before you heard the last 35 minutes of conversation about all of that. So maybe you could redirect it now that you know what you know, because we know you received what we just talked about. So speak to your question briefly, without any examples, with just, what I want is, I want.
Okay. I want an abundance of financial abundance to support the particulars of this continued lifestyle that I am now so embracing and so joyous and so expanding
So the whole
upon.
time that we were having this conversation, what was in your question was abundance, money.
Yes.
Did you have any idea of that? Didn't sound like that. So why were you talking about what you were talking about? Because it's working.
Yes. Very much
Because
so.
it's working. Now, what we want you to understand is the more you talk about those things that are working, the more the abundance that you've already asked about will work too. But now you're focused back on the question of the abundance, and now you got yourself all blocked off again.
Well, you asked me.
We know we did, because we wanted to
okay.
get it out here in the open where you could see what's going on. In other words, isn't that helpful to all of you? You had this wonderful relationship experience with a whole lot of people. Your heart was singing. You're tuned in, tapped in, tuned in. So were they. There was everybody having a good time. On point. You are in the receiving mode of so many things that you're wanting, and you were living the manifestation of that alignment. And then, now you want to talk about abundance, where you're not right now living the manifestation to the degree of the abundance that you're wanting. And now we're focused back on that question. Now,
well, the question, as a result of you asking, is, but the majority of my feeling has been, since I've arrived in Barcelona and on this cruise, is that
we know that's true. And since that is true, then your abundance is becoming more. Can that be enough?
Yes.
Then you're done.
Absolutely. I'm trying to navigate
an
unfamiliar aspect of letting. How do I not let go, because what I no longer want to do is struggle, and I'm struggling here in these words
right
now.
It's all right. We sort of trapped you here because it's for the good of everyone.
But my whole focus is I no longer want to struggle. I'm giving up the struggle, path of least resistance.
Well, you know how you give up the struggle? You give up the struggle by never bringing up an unresolved desire again, by just bringing up the ones that are working.
This one is absolutely working, and I can feel it, and I'm dovetailing it with a lot of other things.
And it's not that long ago that was the question, and now that's not the question because that answer is coming in abundance.
I'm in a particular place emotionally where, in this particular topic, I have not allowed myself to go before, and I'm unfamiliar with it. That's why I was trying to say that I draw from yesterday's experience to shore it up.
We're talking about the same things. So I'm unfamiliar. So hear this. You're really going to hear this clearly. So I have a desire for lovely relationships. And however it happened, we don't have to go back and talk about it. I have found mostly alignment with that subject. And so now I'm having lovely relationships. But I also have a question about more abundance, and I don't have the answers to the more abundance. So if you focus upon the happy relationships, the more abundance comes. This is what we mean when we say you got 10 topics, 9 of them are just the way you want them, 1 of them isn't. Most people spend all their time asking the question about that one, and they hold that one in suspended animation. Focus on anything where energy is flowing, and then energy flows to everything, even the abundance. But if you focus upon the topic where the energy isn't flowing as much as you want, then you slow the energy down.
I understand that, but that's not exactly what I was doing at all. My real question is how can I continue to expand upon the enthusiasm of living in this answer without feeling like I'm abandoning the desire? Because that's where I'm finding myself in.
There's your confusion because...
Correct, I'm looking for clarity.
We'll just say it to you straight up, as loudly and as clearly and as directly as we can. You cannot abandon a desire. And attention to it isn't abandoning it, it's crippling it.
So how can I expand on my enthusiasm for that outcome?
So here we are. Here's the problem. When you increase your attention to a subject, when you're still more in the problem end of it than in the solution end of it, increasing it slows it way, 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 way down. So the answer is you got to be sure that you're in the receiving mode, and then in the receiving mode you increase it. Don't goose it up until you're sure which end of the stick you're on.
And that's where I'm at right now.
Does that make sense to you? This is such a good conversation. So we began today by wanting to discuss with you the difference between the problem end of the stick and the solution end of the stick, or the something missing end of the stick and something being present end of the stick. And we said to you, as clearly as we've ever said, you got to put separation, time separation between you being vibrationally active in the question and you seeking the vibrational answer. In other words, you got to put separation in that. So had lots of nice conversations about that. Everybody sort of gets that if you're hammering away at the question, then the solution cannot come. Then we talked about there are some aspects of your life where the solutions are abundant. And you said to us, I like thinking back on those situations where the solutions are already evident, where the solutions are already abundant, because I like to own that vibration. And we say, yes, do that on the subjects that don't activate any discord, because once you're already connected to source about something and you're already receiving, then anything that you add to that is just going to increase the momentum, and you're just going to have more and more and more and more fun on the subject. But if it's a subject where you haven't made that jump yet and you attempt to increase the momentum of it, all it does is compound the question and make you more resistant to the answer. Can you hear that? Because the human part of you feels like if you just get in there and go after it in a sort of determined way. But this vibrational world is a different world than the action world. The action world is about sort of brute force, and the stronger you are and the bigger you are and the more there are of you, the more you can move stuff around. But in a vibrational world, it's not like that. In a vibrational world, it's subtle and fine-tuning. It's tuning. It's not going hard after things. It's tuning.
That's exactly where I find myself now, but I It's new to me. It's very new to me. And
we know that it is, but what can be hard about this answer? Abraham, I have this thing that I've wanted for a while and it isn't coming. What should I do? Leave it alone. Well, I know I should leave it alone, but I've got this thing. I've wanted it for such a long time. What should I do? How can I make it come to me? Just leave it alone. Are you sure I should leave it alone? Because it feels like I should be hard after it. Well, you should leave it alone because your vortex has got hold of it and your inner being has got hold of it and it's working on your behalf. It's been moved to the universe's side of the placemat. It's been moved to the universe's side of the placemat. So now you can let go of it. And if you keep putting it on your side of the placemat, then you're going to keep doing a crappy job of it instead of letting the universe do a divine job of it. Just trying to get your attention.
Oh, you got it loud and clear. I'm all yours. I'm all yours.
Well, we don't have anything else.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's it. Trying too hard is a human tendency because you've been, bless your hearts, you've been working so hard with your action. You've been offering so much action to compensate for energy that you didn't quite get figured out, you see. And so just know that anything that feels like a struggle, leave it alone because you're getting nowhere with it. If you're struggling over it, you're making the struggle more. Leave it alone. If it feels like a struggle, it feels like a struggle for a reason. You're barking up the wrong tree. You're working on the wrong side of the placemat. You just got to let it go. You just got to let it go. You got to say things to yourself like, well, that's it for me on that for now. I'm not going to think about that because I'm not making any progress. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let the universe work on it. And I'm going to focus on the things that make me feel good and on the things that make me feel powerful. And I'm going to tune in as often as I can. And I do that often. And I'm just going to let the good times roll. And I'm just going to follow my bliss. And I'm just going to follow the feeling. And when I get an impulse about that, if I do, and I'm sure I will eventually, then I'll follow that impulse. And until then, I'm just going to follow the other impulses. Do you think you're good at following impulses?
That's exactly what leads.
Do you meditate?
I try. I struggle.
So do you think that you get into the receptive mode?
I was yesterday. I couldn't tell the difference between my nose or my toes, and I didn't care.
So if you're in the receptive mode, if you believe that you've been in the receptive mode, and we know that you have been, so when an idea flows, seems like a good idea, yeah? Follow those ideas.
Yes, it does. And that's part of my dilemma, because one of the ideas of starting a particular business was initiated prior to being exposed to Abraham and yourself. And that is where I struggle, because I don't know what kind of receptive mode I was in at the time that I received that
Doesn't matter.
impulse.
None of that matters.
Okay.
None of that matters. When we were teasing with you in the beginning about how we wouldn't look back, you can if you want to, but we wouldn't look back. We don't look back because there is so much that is delicious to focus upon between where you are and where you are going. And so that's what has our undivided attention. And so anything prior to now is irrelevant because in this now, there are only two things that matter. What you're asking for, which is what you're summoning, and what you're doing in relationship to it. The more head-on you hit things, then the more you dig into where you are. The lighter you are about a subject, then the more you're called in the direction of what you want. So you just got to lighten up. Just be less self-aware. Be less self-condemning. Be less aware of dilemma. Be easier about it. Be more trusting that the universe has it. Be more trusting in what's going on in the vortex. Be more accepting of what's going on in the vortex. And meanwhile, just enjoy the quieting of your mind. We know you can't quiet your mind all day, every day, but if you're accomplishing that for a few minutes every day, then that's enough. And it just gets better and better and better and better. This conversation has been a really good one. You moved a place you haven't been before. You now are more willing to put some separation between the asking for something and the watching out for it and the just letting it be. Separation, we're talking about give it a rest. Source is on it. You've done the work. It's in the vortex. Law of attraction is after it. It's queued up for you. And when you're ready, which you will be when you give it a rest, when you're ready, which you will be when you give it a rest, when you're ready, when you have really given it a rest, you will be when you're no longer talking about it. You'll be ready when you've given it a rest. You'll receive an idea, and the idea will be so intoxicatingly beautiful that nothing would be able to keep you from moving in the direction of that idea. And until that happens, give it a rest.